in the way. Out Trump. Let's talk to our guest about this. Lisa Booth, a Republican strategist and senior director of the BlackRock Group. Mark LaFont-Hill is host of HuffPost Live and CNN political commentator. Also a professor at Morehouse College. Good to have both of you with us this morning.
Hi, Victor.
So, Lisa, let's go first to Cruz, and then we'll get to Christie. Cruz, this goes farther than he's gone before in opposing his party there in the chamber. Does this work for him in 2016 politics?
Well, look, I think there's some genuine frustration there. And here, look, I think this speaks to the dysfunction in Congress, and what Americans find so frustrating about Congress is the fact that something so unrelated, such as the Export-Import Bank, could make it into this legislation about the Highway Trust Fund. And I think from conservatives, first and foremost, there's two sources of frustration here. One is over the Export-Import Bank, which conservatives see as, a corporate welfare giveaway. And then the second is over the Highway Trust Fund, because the Highway Trust Fund spending continues to outpace the income money and the revenue. And so I think there's a source of frustration with both of those aspects here.
This comes, though, from Ted Cruz, who's tried to shove Obamacare into many, many other things. So to talk about what's germane to the topic or germane to the bill, he seems like the wrong spokesperson.
Well, Victor, I think his general frustration, as I mentioned, is over the Export-Import Bank, and the same frustrations that many conservatives across the country share, also with the Highway Trust Funding, the Highway Trust Fund bill, because what we've seen with the Highway Trust Fund bill is spending continues to outpace revenue, and there are no structural changes in this bill. So once again, Congress is asking for a bailout with the Highway Trust Fund bill, and until you address those structural changes, until you address the Highway Trust Fund, then we're going to continue to see this problem. And I think there's this, a larger source of frustration with both the Export-Import Bank and the Highway Trust Fund as a whole.
Mark, let's talk about 2016. I mean, it appears that even for Ted Cruz, who has opposed his party there in the chamber many times aggressively, that this is the effect of Trump on the rest of the race and coming down to the wire on trying to make that first debate.
Oh, that's absolutely true. I mean, one of the things that Ted Cruz has very masterfully done, even if it's not the most ethical thing, is kind of hang in the bushes while Donald Trump goes on his tour of absurd statements. He hasn't come out and censured Trump the way many of the Republican candidates have, because he assumes that Trump is going to flame out, and the activist wing of the Republican Party, that voting base will be his if Trump isn't there. That's his natural base and his natural connection. So he has sort of tried to stay out of the way. But what he's seen is that Trump is lasting longer than many people expected. Christie's going to have the same challenge for a different reason. And as a result, he has to say something or do something to make that top 10. So now he's going after folk. But he's not doing it Trump style per se, because Trump doesn't just throw flames at the Republican Party. He also goes at particular sectors of American people and the voting base. He's much more ad hominem. While saying Mitch McConnell didn't tell the truth is somewhat of an ad hominem, he's still getting at, as Lisa said, a bigger frustration in the party. And so he's trying to be the conscience of the GOP. He's trying to be the conscience of the Senate. And even though he probably violated Rule 19 of decorum, he still is trying to get at that base. I think it could work for him. It may get him into the top 10, but still the third tier of candidates for sure.
Let's talk about another candidate trying to get into that top 10, Christie, governor of New Jersey, showing some fire on the campaign trail as he has this exchange with a voter over his gun rights record. Let's listen to a bit of it.
State gun right groups from here in Iowa to Minnesota, even to Georgia, have sent out some emails recently saying that you're very anti-gun when it comes to the Second Amendment. So my question is, how are you going to New Jersey gun owners into thinking that you'll be anything other than a President Michael Bloomberg if you become successful?
Well, because it's not true. So let's start with that. Yeah, does New Jersey have a lot of really difficult gun laws? Yeah, and they were all signed before I became governor. And I'm still waiting for one fact from you about me being anti-gun. Give me one. One fact. Got one? By the way, I vetoed the state ID system. You're wrong about that, too.
Lisa, this is the tell it like it is candidate, right? That's his slogan. But is this the right tone in the wake of Charleston, in the wake of Chattanooga, in the wake of Lafayette? Is this the right tone for this topic?
Well, I think that there's frustration there, and as there should be. Look, as someone who's worked on campaigns for over 7 years now, there's a lot of misinformation out there about your candidate. So I think this is the job of a candidate. This is the job of someone like Christie, who's making a presidential run, is to set the record straight. And that's what he's doing. And this individual in the audience, these individuals in the audience who brought up these questions, who questioned Governor Christie's record, seem to not have his facts straight. And so it's Governor Christie's job, as he did, to set the record straight and say, hey, these laws that you're talking about were signed into law prior to me even being governor. And so that's his job, is to set the record straight.
Of course, tone matters here. Mark, finish it up.
Yeah, I was going to say every candidate has inaccurate claims made about their record, and they correct them. Christie's the only one who somehow managed to look like a bully when he does it. He had every right to correct people on his gun record, although I think he's not being completely honest about his stance on guns. But I do think that he has to do it in a way that doesn't reinforce the narrative about him, which is that he's a bully, that he's vindictive, that he's mean-spirited. Post-Bridgegate, we need a warmer and fuzzier Christie if he wants to not just make it to the top 10, but ultimately make it into a real competitive race here.
Well, Christie said in his launch that he will often say things, or occasionally say things, that will make even his supporters cringe. And again, he's a telling it like it is candidate. And I guess that's what he did in Iowa. Mark Lamont Hill, Lisa Booth, thank you both.
Thank you,
Pleasure.
Victor.
Also coming up later this morning on CNN.